Everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today we have a very popular regular on the Chef AJ Broadcasting Network because it's the third Friday of every month. Well, it's not the first Friday of every month, it's the first Friday of the first month. If you want to know the schedule, sign up for my newsletter at chefaj.com, which means it's time for the Doctor is in Q&A with Ron Weiss, MD, where he answers your questions. I guess I can still say Happy New Year because it's my first time seeing you this year.
You can say that, and I will accept your New Year's greetings and Happy New Year to you.
Yep. Next month, I'll say Happy Valentine's Day instead. I think you're coming
Excellent.
out, right? Or Happy President's Day.
Yep.
Anything new on the Ethos Farm?
Well, I know you're in sunny California, right?
No, I'm in Northern California. I'm in rainy California now.
Oh, so it's in the winter, it's raining. Oh,
It's
you're outside of San Francisco.
No, it gets down to about 33. Remember that saying, the coldest summer, the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah, it gets right. And then doesn't it get warmer like in October or something?
Oh gosh, I wish it would get warm here. When it's hot here, I'm laughing when people say it's so hot. I'm like, no, it's not. I miss the desert for the weather, but not for the snakes and scorpions and spiders that came with it.
Let me show you what's going on here now.
I bet it's going to be snow because my friend Sharon in Baltimore showed me her snow.
So this is the farm in the snow. Can you see it?
Oh my God, it's like, how does anything grow?
Well, it's we're under a blanket of snow. In the Northeast, the winter time is a time of rest, where the land rests and it's just resting and sleeping under snow.
Wow.
So it's a nice period of time.
Wow, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Weiss. And let me start with the first question. I'm not going to say your name, young lady, but why are you anonymous all the time when you have a very common first name? No one will ever know it's you, but it's a very good question. And Dr. Weiss, can you talk about the dangers of high triglycerides? Why does it matter? Good. I like this question because it's general. It's not just about a person, so this is helpful to everyone. Thank you for the great question.
Yes. So when I think about triglycerides, and I tell this to my patients, the triglycerides are a component. It is a kind of fat, and it is a component that we see results from when we get our cholesterols measured. It's not technically a cholesterol, like the way we think of cholesterols, but it makes up a component of the total cholesterol calculation when you go to your doctors and get your cholesterol levels measured. And what I say, and I believe I borrowed this from Dr. Clapper, because he used to, and I think he probably does, I've heard him say it many times, talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I borrowed that from Dr. Clapper, and when I talk to patients about the cholesterol, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you have your total cholesterol, which for American standards, the government says should be under a number of 200. I would say the average whole food, plant-based, mature eater, Chef AJ, maybe averages about 150. What is yours? Do you know?
I don't know. Like, could it have been 37? They were fine. Like
137?
No, it was. No, could it have been 37 or 87? It was low.
Well,
I will look it up.
It can be very low. Total. We're talking about total cholesterol.
Oh, my total cholesterol. Oh, my cholesterol ranges from.
150?
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying triglycerides. I've never had a higher cholesterol than 126. It's often like
yours
90.
is very low. I would say from what I see from the average from plant-based eaters, maybe like 150, something like that. Yours is spectacularly low. But of that total, then you get the three components, the good, bad, and ugly, that are additive to make up that total cholesterol. The good is the good cholesterol, which what we call the good cholesterol, known as high density lipoprotein, HDL. And the reason why we say it's good is because it tends to pluck, HDL is made by your liver and it plucks out atherosclerotic plaque forming molecules from the lining of your arteries and clears it out. And that great action is opposed by the bad. And that is called bad cholesterol, LDL, and low density lipoprotein. And that is the reason why people take statin agents, or doctors tell them to take statin agents, because the statin agents like Crestor, rosuvastatin, and atorvastatin, and Lipitor, and simvastatin, they all selectively lower that. And the reason why you want that to be lowered is because it increases risk when it's elevated to get cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes and clog up your arteries. So we have the good, the bad, and then we have the ugly. The ugly I call the triglycerides. And I believe Dr. Clapper does too. And, you know, the ugly, I guess it's not as bad as being evil or bad, but it's like ugly. It's like we're gathering information, and as in recent years, more and more information on triglycerides. We know that they're not good. We've known for quite some time that really elevated triglycerides can cause some very dangerous problems, like, for example, pancreatitis, where you could seriously injure your pancreas or die from a pancreas inflammation just from elevated triglycerides. But these are quite elevated. We also know, and we've noticed for many years, that diabetics tend to have elevations of triglycerides. Like, that's a common finding in people who have diabetes, and in diabetes precursor, which is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, which occurs in diabetics and is a precursor to the diabetic condition, it's common to see elevated triglycerides. So we know that these are not good things. The other thing is that there is some research that has shown that maybe, we're continuing to work on this, that elevated triglycerides is disadvantageous for cardiovascular health. Like, maybe it could predispose to having heart attacks and strokes. Perhaps maybe it could influence the development of malignancies. We're not sure. We're trying to figure this out. But what we do find is that when people adopt whole plant diets, that they uniformly drop. And I have had many patients come in here who were trying to take drugs to get elevated triglycerides down. And there are drugs that are made for this, but they were never as effective as eating whole plant foods and losing weight. Oh, that's the other thing. For this young lady who's writing in, oftentimes people who are overweight, you have to remember, fat can be made out of triglycerides. If you lose your fat, and optimize your weight, you will most likely and very effectively drop your triglyceride level, and then you can get rid of the ugly. So
I would love to hear from Anonymous whether or not you are, because she asks a lot of good questions, and that's the answer to a lot of questions. So when you go into the next question, I'll look up what my triglycerides and cholesterol were at the last testing.
So just to give you the normal ranges for that, Chef AJ, under 150 is considered the normal range for triglycerides in the United States in most labs, but under 100 is excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this is a question right up your alley, because some people, if they're watching for the first time, because we're new just this week on Instagram, may not know that in addition to a wonderful board-certified plant-based doctor, you're also a regenerative farmer with your own farm. And this question from Laura says, I've tried growing vegetables in the Pacific Northwest with very little success. A friend with a successful and bountiful garden every year told me she used aged manure plus broken up shells from shellfish in her soil. Neither appeal to me, maybe because it's not vegan, I don't know. What materials do you use? And also, if manure is a key soil ingredient, does it have to become something other than manure once it's aged for a period of time? She's in Washington State.
Well, that's a wonderful question. And there's so many questions to ask on growing food, gardening, feeding yourself, and doing it in a good way so that we don't harm our environment, harm other beings, right? And I welcome, please, if any of you have any of these questions, I love them and love to answer them, and any other questions about the environment and the world around us. So I like this question. So, there are many different schools of thought in this. And what I can tell you is that in general, let me give you a really quick condensed snapshot, historical snapshot. For thousands of years since farming began, successful farming began, which began about 10,000 years before the Common Era, in other words, about 12,000 years ago, successful farmers learned that in order to keep their soils fertile, that they had to recycle nutrients. There's a fertility cycle, and you have to keep it intact. You have to remember when you plant seeds in the ground, and it gives you a tomato or a fruit, and you pull that fruit right out of the ground, or pull the plant. What are you walking away from the ground with? With materials, goods, right? Nutrients, proteins, molecules, fibers. You have to put that back if you want to have living soils year after year and after year. If you want to, you just can't keep taking from the soil. You have to put back. And the way farmers, a major way farmers have done that over thousands of years has been to use manures, to use waste products. And believe it or not, I'm looking out my window now here. I'm going to give you this little snapshot, if I can stretch this. Now, I don't know if you can see in the snow, but right outside my window, do you see that, Chef AJ? Where that branch is on the ground?
It's kind of hard to see, though. There's a lot of glare.
Okay, well, we have a septic tank, which is outside this house, this medical practice I'm in, because it was a farmhand's house. And when I interviewed the 90-year-old farmer who was here for 40 years before we came here, she said until 1985, she would pump out that septic tank and put it on the fields every spring. And when you drove of our waste, you could smell when you drove through Long Valley, you knew when the farmers were emptying the septic tanks and putting it on the fields, because that was really valuable stuff. And over thousands of years, we've used our own feces, animal feces, any kind of manures. They're really valuable because they contain not only a lot of waste and they put what we eat, that tomato we eat and the pepper we eat, it turns into waste, or the grass or the grains that animals are eating, it turns into waste and it goes back into the soil with an excellent dose of very important bacteria, which are the microbiome in the animals and our GI tract. And then that gives you a living soil. So that's the fertility cycle. It's very important. So the question is, can you have a living soil without recycling? And we think not. We think not. You need some kind of recycling process. I mean, can you put chemical fertilizers in? And you can do that, but that's not organic and regenerative agriculture. When you do that, you will more likely have to use insect sprays, killing chemicals to kill off pests that are attacking your plants, because the plants are not going to be strong enough because they don't have the natural nutrients that have been incorporated in the cycle. Now another question is, well, if I don't want to use my own human manure and I don't like, I'm an animal rights person, or I'm compassionate about animals, and I don't want to utilize animal manures for some reason, although, I do believe it is possible to use animal manures and be in a compassionate way. I don't think it in an industrial form, I don't think it is. But in any event, if you don't want to use animal manures, can you have a good fertility cycle and use composting and without animal manures and with cover crops to get that soil right? Yes, you can, we think. We now think there is evidence and there's new data that shows that you can incorporate composted materials. In other words, you could take like grass clippings, shredded up leaves, hay, straw, chop it all up, organic materials like that, compost them, and you will come out with just as good a result with compost as you would if you got that manure. So if you want to check this out, you should Google, go to your search engine and put in Johnson Su bioreactor. It's Johnson, JOHNSON dash Su, SU, bioreactor, and you'll see there are videos there that teach you how to construct your own self-contained. It's about 6 feet tall within a wire bin. It's doable. You could do it in your backyard. It would take maybe about 6 hours, 7 hours to construct, and you can make your own composting unit to make this stuff that is like gold. And I know because we've made them here. We have 2 bioreactors, and we're still working on our technique, but it's beautiful stuff, and it's a high-level compost. It was developed through a USDA grant by Drs. Su and Johnson, and so I highly recommend that. And then I think if you do that, you won't need the shells, you won't need the manure, you can just do that. However, if you do want to use the manure, yeah, you can get composted manure. You can.
Great. Thank you. This is from L. Help. My naturopathic doctor had me do a saliva test that showed I have adrenal fatigue, in quotes. The doctor put me on a whole regimen of supplements, but in Dr. Greger's new book, he said there is no such thing as adrenal fatigue. What are your thoughts? And what are your thoughts of saliva testing in general, I might add?
I think there's I'm just giving this thought. I'm trying to organize my thoughts because it's a lot of these questions, they're excellent because there's so many ways they can be answered. So I want to organizing my thoughts to answer in this specific way, which is, you have conventional medicine, and doctors, almost all doctors are trained in academic settings. In other words, you go to medical school, right? Then you do a postgraduate training at a university, usually, or at a large medical center. And, we try to follow evidence. At the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of the practicing conventional doctors don't often follow evidence. And that's why because I believe lifestyle medicine offers the strongest evidence for reversing and preventing illness. But because of the perceived difficulty in adhering to lifestyle medicine, and one of those things is eating plant-based diets of whole foods, they kind of conventional doctors, and because they don't have training and nutrition kind of abandon that and go with medications generally. Aside from that, I will say that conventional medicine basically is rooted in evidence and science and data. And the data applies to not only nutrition and eating plants and whatever, but it also applies to like how to do a test. Like, what do I have an adrenal problem? If I do, what test should I do to identify that? And so there are standard tests. And I have found that oftentimes in alternative medical practices, there are testing methods used which are not necessarily standardized and that are not necessarily proven with randomized studies or have not been investigated fully. So this saliva test, you know, I don't know exactly what kind of saliva test this person had, but in general, endocrinologists usually use blood tests to identify adrenal problems. Now let's get to the adrenal problems for a second. The adrenal gland, for those of you who don't know, the adrenal gland is one of the glands or hormone-producing organs that we have in our body. What is a hormone? A hormone is a molecule, it's a chemical molecule or a molecule made out of atoms that directs other functions of our body in other areas. It's like a director or a boss that tells other tissues to do something, some physiologic process. And these hormones are made by glands. That's the tissue that makes the hormones. Let me give you some examples. An adrenal gland, which is what this question is on, makes a number of different kinds of hormones. They make, for example, adrenaline. That's where the name adrenal gland comes from. Adrenaline, other names for adrenaline is epinephrine or norepinephrine. They determine what's called the fight or flight reaction. When you get excited, your adrenal gland pours out adrenaline to get you up, get you fighting, get you motivated, get you moving. When you exercise, you wouldn't be able to exercise without adrenaline because you couldn't, it's needed to help get your heart rate going, to get your breathing up. It gets you up and going. So that's an example of what the adrenal gland does. We have other hormones like thyroid hormone that comes from the thyroid gland that controls the metabolism in your body and the level of energy burning. We have sex hormones like estrogens that produced by the ovaries, or testosterone that's produced primarily by the testicles, although even the adrenal gland creates a little bit of testosterone. So in any event, that's what hormones do, and the glands that produce them are the endocrine system. And endocrinologists are the specialists that deal with these hormonal networks and systems. So in general, they have their own, a standard academic university-trained endocrinologist has their way of measuring these things. And I read about a lot of these outlying things on the internets, and patients talk about them, and patients will come in and saying adrenal fatigue. As Dr. Greger says, this is not an entity that's really known in academia. It's sort of like it's more of a colloquialism, something that is used by the public and by alternative practitioners, but it's not something that we have evidence of. So, there's something in its extreme form. There is something called Addison's disease, and President Kennedy, JFK, had this, and it can kill you. It's life-threatening. where your adrenal, it just doesn't get tired, it stops working, and you stop making hormones. And one of the very, 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 very important hormones it makes, besides adrenaline, is it makes steroids, hormones like prednisone. Hydrocortisone is what it makes. So President Kennedy had to take hydrocortisone because his adrenal gland stopped working. But we would know that because you would, you would meet your end without this. So in any event, that's the response to the adrenal fatigue. It's not really something that's is known to exist that we can prove. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this next question is anonymous, and you will know who you are because we do email the people after they're answered, so they know, because sometimes we have to save them for a month. But person, please, everyone, put anonymous in the first sentence because I almost read this. It was literally in the last sentence. So here we go. So this is a subject near and dear to your heart, Dr. Weiss, because it's about cancer. And the person is saying, they are lost as to how they got vaginal vulva cancer after being on a raw food diet for 7.5 years and then transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, SOS free. So total of 15 years vegan. The person was diagnosed with invasive squamous cell carcinoma cancer stage 1 in the vaginal vulva area in October of 2023, currently receiving radiation, completed 12 treatments, and they're going to in a phase 2 of 10 more treatments focused on the tumor area. I feel so bad for this person. I'm so sorry. I'm just, my heart breaks for you. But they don't know how they will get through this treatment. I want to cry just because I volunteered.
That's a tough one.
I volunteered at cancer. I mean, I'm so sorry. I'm probably going to cry. I am already suffering radiation burn. My appetite is down, and we were talking about this before we logged on. The person's anxiety is through the roof. I can maybe help you with that, or not personally, but I have some really great resources. Apart from remaining on my whole foods vegan diet, adding in juicing and turmeric ginger shots, what would Dr. Weiss recommend to heal from the brutal treatment and remain cancer-free? The alternative to radiation was a major surgical procedure. I have declined the chemotherapy that was offered to me. I live in Canada. Could stress have played a major role in my getting cancer? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I also am sorry for the troubles you're having. So oftentimes, when patients are given a diagnosis of cancer, the first thing is disbelief. First reaction is disbelief. And then the second reaction is, why me? Like, why did I get this? So not often, but once in a while, and I can think of one of our patients in general I'm thinking of right now, who was following for a number of years a whole food plant-based diet and developed cancer on the diet. And I know this was true because we had surveillance of him beforehand, which showed there was no cancer there. And it developed over a number of years, a very aggressive cancer, while he was eating whole plant foods. So you have to remember something in my trying to comfort you. Human beings are very inquisitive, right? We're always asking why. Why? When tragedy strikes, why did this occur to me? Why did this happen? And I feel that it's important so it doesn't drive you crazy to give some answers to this, or to possibilities to think of, because I find that it is somewhat comforting to hear these think about these ideas and to consider these. So the thing you have to remember is, listen, you should not have any regrets that you followed a plant-based diet and that you got this. You don't know. Maybe the cancer may have been much worse if you weren't on a whole food plant-based diet. Whatever, we know this, the plants did not cause your cancer, but perhaps maybe in some way they helped you. Like, I often think about this with Steve Jobs, right? He went through many dietary iterations in his life. He's described as being like I think, I don't know his story intimately, but a fruitarian for a while, and he was eating some kind of plant-based diet, but he eventually ended up dying of this cancer. But he lived for, maybe, it was like my father, he lived for a couple of years. Maybe he would have died in 6 months without it. You don't know. So I always like to think positively with patients, and especially cancer patients. And that thing that you did for 15 years, that may have been the thing that maybe saved you from only having a stage 1 cancer instead of a metastatic cancer. So always think positively. And I'm sure the plants did help you. The reason why I suspect this is because, you know, when you think about the cancers of the lower reproductive tract, the most common one, which is very common, of course, is cervical cancer. And that's why, and we know now that the vast majority of the cervical cancers are due to a viral infection, which is called human papillomavirus. But it's also a major risk factor for vaginal cancers and vulvar cancers. And these cancers are, you know, cervical cancers are very common. The vulvovaginal or the genital vaginal cancers are rare, relatively speaking, but they're driven by the same virus. So can eating plants help your reaction to this virus, or to take, there is some evidence that yes, eating plants, especially cruciferous plants, can help your immune system to kill off this virus, this human papillomavirus. So definitely what you were doing is helpful. From my memory, other risk factors also are smoking. However, sometimes we can't find any risk factors. But I think my advice to you is, it's a difficult situation. Try to look forward. Don't look back. Look forward, because you do have a great ally in your treatment, and that is whole plant foods. And don't give up. Now is the time to eat at a higher level. And the wonderful thing I like about lifestyle medicine is it's not just about eating plants, because we are more than plants. Although plants are so important, Chef AJ. The other critical thing for you, I think at this point, is stress management and stress reduction. We've got to address that, because at the end of the day, a patient's emotional state is the emperor of their condition. And it doesn't matter what kind of cells you have. If your emotional state is not beneficial to you, no kind of treatment can help you, because the mind is such a powerful thing. And that's why the thing that we use to help patients overcome very stressful and traumatic events here in this practice, what we use is mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I know that you've had Asha, I believe, on your show, right, Chef AJ? Asha is our clinical director here. She was trained out of, has her certification out of Brown University. And for those of you who have never heard of it, mindfulness-based stress reduction, also known as MBSR, is an amazing evidence-based and profound practice. And you can take a course on it, which teaches you to internally to get over these traumas and how to be in the moment now instead of dwelling in the past and anticipating terrible things in the future, which is where anxiety comes in, worry comes in. It's a very effective thing. It's a movement that was founded by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He was a professor at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. It's a powerful tool. If you are inclined to do so, I know Asha leads. So MBSR, there are many different ways to access it. Let me give you some resources. There is a very nice book that Jon Kabat-Zinn wrote. It's called Mindfulness for Beginners. That's the one I like to give. It's a thin book, but you have to concentrate on reading it. And I think it will really help your stress and emotional state. There are MBSR courses you can take. They're 8-week courses. You meet once a week for 8 weeks and you're given homework, and our patients who have done it say it has changed their life a lot of the time. And there's very few people who leave the course that do not say that it has profoundly affected them. I know that Asha, she gives our course, and it's remotely. If you want to go to our website, it's ethosprimarycare.com, and you can contact her through there. There is an upcoming 8-week course that she gives, and it starts, I believe, in late February or the first week of March. But you can also find courses in Canada. I'm sure they're given remotely.
Well, first of all, hello, why haven't you told us this? Can you give us the exact link to register, and we'll put it in the show notes, and maybe Asha could come on your next show and like kind of pitch the course, because this sounds amazing. Because
it is.
yeah, I would take something like that, because I have a lot of anxiety, and I emailed the person while you were talking to say, well, I'm very sorry and I can't help with your cancer. I have some great resources for this, and now you've just added one too.
Yeah. No, it's you know what I see it as, Asha? I mean, Asha, Chef H.
That's okay. So, well, it starts with A.
Chef AJ. It's MBSR can be used as a tool for many things. Like, for example, in this situation, we have a patient who's devastated by this thing, like, why did I get this, right? I've been a good girl. I've been doing what I was told. I'm eating plants. Whatever, plants prevent cancer, and they do. But why did this happen to me? It takes a lot to get over that. There's, that's daunting. MBSR helps that. MBSR helps you move forward out of that emotional and mental and cognitive construct, and moves you forward down the line so you can heal. MBSR, let's say you have food addictions, right? Let's say every time I get stressed out, I get a candy bar, or I start eating like a bag of potato chips. MBSR can be used as a tool to detach you from that stress in that moment, so that all of a sudden, when you have the candy bar in your hand, you're trained to say, stop. Why am I doing this? What is the emotion that's making me do this? And then you take yourself off autopilot and you reroute yourself, and you don't do it. So for example, there is one of Jon Kabat-Zinn's proteges, Judson Brewer, has a right. Was he on your show?
No, he's coming on next week.
Right. He has an app which is called Eat Right Now, and it's all based on this. And he wrote a wonderful book called The Craving Mind. the craving mind, which is based on this. So like it can be used, it can be used as a tool to bring you power in all of your healthy lifestyle pursuits, from sleeping. People who have difficulty sleeping at night because they have anxiety or their mind is turning, right? There's like all these thoughts in their head. They can't detach from their day. MBSR can be used to implement the pillar of sleep. What else? So we have, let's say, alcohol, right? So I'm going through the 7 pillars, the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. We talked about how MBSR can help you to eat better. MBSR can help you to manage stress. That's another pillar. MBSR can help your sleep. That's a 3rd pillar. MBSR can help you to avoid dangerous substances like drinking wine or smoking cigarettes or marijuana. It can help with that, to help you avoid that. That's another pillar of lifestyle medicine. MBSR can help you even to exercise.
Yeah, I took a class at UCLA. It was great. It was.
You took the MBSR.
Yeah, with the John Kabat-Zinn didn't teach it. A nurse practitioner that works for Dr. Emran Meyer, who's a really renowned GI doctor there, who really believes in the gut. I was there. I was sent there by my gastroenterologist because I have, terrible IBS, and I don't use the principles all the time, but I remember the class being wonderful. But even to find out why this person has is it that important? I mean, unless it's something that the person can do something about now, like environmental, does it even matter? They need to kind of deal with now.
Yeah, like for example, I'm glad you mentioned the IBS. The IBS is a perfect thing. Like it is there are 2 things in this world. Like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is the major cause of abdominal pain in middle life, right? In otherwise healthy adults, like abdominal pain, it can be disabling. And it has a large, although whole plant foods go a long way, a dedicated whole food plant-based diet goes a long way towards helping it. I would say maybe makes up 70 to 80%. 60, 70, 80%. We have had people when they get so stressed out, even if they're eating whole food plant-based diet, they get worse again because the mind is more powerful than any physical system in your body. And if there is enough stress, you can get worse again. We've had people who have rheumatoid arthritis who completely get rid of their arthritis by eating plants and only plants. And then you know what? They have a stressful life event, they get a RA flare. We utilize MBSR in these people to really get their illnesses to be abated.
Thank you. Yeah, let's get Asha on, or at least get us the link for the show notes. So
you know what we'll do? Maybe in the last 2 minutes, I'm just texting her. She can come in and just speak for a minute and just give you more information.
Well, because you're coming on before her course starts, so why don't you have her? You can do both. But I mean, isn't it hard to be a doctor? Like, because if she was my patient, I'd be like so sad and crying delivering the news. Like, how do you do that? It's so sad.
I know, but especially with cancer patients, their best medicine is hope. I learned that from my father.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And that's the message that the whole plant foods gave to him. Because when he had end-stage pancreatic cancer and we took him to Sloan Kettering. And it's the best place in the world, right, for conventional cancer treatment. But we walked out of there and they said, we can't help you. You're going to die. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right? What's he supposed to do with that? Die. Right? There's no hope. You're going to die. And that's why when I randomly came across this thing and I read that one person in South Carolina had used a whole plant diet and reversed and cured themselves. Oh my God, we latched on to that like white on rice. My father, we read that story, it completely changed my father's existence. And because it changed his motivation, he was a pastrami sandwich eater. He had no interest in eating leaves and whatever. He closed the book and he said, yes, I will do that. I will do this extreme thing and I will do it. And he did reverse his cancer. I mean, it shrunk by 50%. He didn't get chemo. All he was doing was eating kale and, you know, some root vegetables or whatever, brown rice, whatever he was doing. So in any event, and I think what I learned from him is that for, you know, he had very advanced cancer. It wasn't like this young lady's. I mean, most of his liver was gone from the cancer. It was spread all over. But he lived 18 months instead of like 90 or 60 days. And for that period of time, he felt well, he lived well, he had high quality of life, and he knew, he thought, he was so hopeful and so confident, he thought he was going to triumph. He knew, he had confidence in what he was doing, and that was a wonderful thing that gave him. Hope is an important thing for all cancer patients to have. So, yeah.
Thank you. Never give up hope. So speaking of programs, do you run one called a 30-day detox?
We do.
Okay, because Nancy would like to know more specific information about it.
Okay. So the 30-day detox is a 30-day program of eating at a very, very restricted level. When I say restricted, it has been, and this is, I was telling you about this, Chef AJ. The design of this is based upon the pleasure trap, which is the famous book that was written by Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Doug Lisle. And it's about how we can unhook ourselves, and you know how important this is, Chef AJ, because it's like your life, right, of what you accomplish. How we have to be, how we can unhook ourselves from the natural evolutionary process of pleasure in order to triumph in our eating habits and in our life. And basically that's what the 30-day detox is. So it takes specific foods, and spoiler alert, it has a very heavy emphasis on dark leafy cruciferous greens. And you have dark leafy, a lot of huge, like 16 ounces of dark leafy greens every day, raw, 3 starches, fruits, berries, ground flaxseed, and water. And that's all you eat for 1 month. There's very little cooking. Recipes are almost non-existent. It's actually, in ways, it's very easy to do because it's liberating. A lot of our patients tell us, because they're not tied to a kitchen anymore. You can eat it on the go if you want. You don't need kitchens per se. But in any event, what we use it for is for, well, anyone can do it. If you want to, prove to yourself that you can overcome a problem quickly, like in 30 days, we utilize that. Let's say someone has a cholesterol, it's a high cholesterol, and the doctors keep telling them, oh my God, you have to take this Lipitor, you have coronary artery disease, you have to take it. This will show you in 30 days the lowest cholesterol you could possibly have of your life. What is possible for you? What is your human potential? Because the eating is so pristine and refined. Let's say you have, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, or let's say you've had GERD all of your life and you can't get off your Protonix or your Prevacid or your omeprazole. You can't. We utilize this to shift people from one state of being to another because it's so dramatic and it's so intense, the way of eating. I'll give you some other examples. Let's say, for example, in hypertension, let's say people are on drugs. It's a great opportunity to get them off their drugs because, and we have different variations of the 30-day detox. We have one specifically that's for hypertensive patients, one that's for highly inflamed patients, like who have autoimmune diseases. We have one for diabetics. We have one for cancer patients. So in any event, the 30-day detox is also, you have a guide through the 30-day detox, which is a lifestyle coach who is your buddy. It's like a buddy system through the 30 days. And then what we do is we get blood tests before you begin on day 1 and on the 30th day. And then we show you what the difference is, what you accomplished through the blood test. So that is the 30-day detox. It's, you know, I have to tell you something, you know, Asha is one of the highest eaters I know in the plant-based world. She comes from an Indian culture, a Jain culture, which is a plant, very, you know, a strict plant-based culture where fasting is part of the culture. And so she'd been plant-based for many years, many years. Well, her whole of her life, basically, but, you know, whole food plant-based for many years before she came. And when she did the 30-day detox, after eating like this for 30 days, Chef AJ, Asha says that it changed her relationship with food. And I think the reason why is because it's so sustained regarding the pleasure trap for over a month.
I want to do it. I want to do it.
Even small things.
I got back in the pleasure trap this year because I'm starting to eat a little bit of salt, not intentionally.
I know.
Condiments.
Because our world is designed to trap us. See, that's why I love Dr. Lyle and Goldhammer so much. Really, in order to be successful, we need to be always mindful of the pleasure trap. And you need MBSR in order to be that's the mindfulness. So you can understand how to stay away from the pleasure trap. That's really what it boils down to.
Wow, this sounds great. I want to find out, but get me links. You guys never give me.
Okay, we will. Maybe what we can do next time is I texted Asha, but she's not coming. Maybe next time we can spend but let's see, what is it? It's going to be February. Give me 1 second.
While he walks away, I'll tell you who is on the show next. So we have tomorrow, Dr. Nandita Shah. She's from India, and she's going to be talking about how to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. And then Sunday, we have Dr. Columbus Batiste. So,
yeah. Yasha, just gonna, I want to make sure I'm not misinforming you or giving you wrong logistical information. So I just thought maybe 30 seconds, Asha will just pop in to confirm and clarify that what I told you
was correct.
Is correct because she's in charge of it. But yeah, it is life-changing. And I do recommend that mindfulness for beginners is wonderful. If you there's a well-known cardiologist whose name is Dr. Jonathan Fisher, who utilized MBSR to overcome physician burnout syndrome. Just go to YouTube, watch his videos. Dr. Jonathan Fisher, he's wonderful. I love his videos on MBSR. Asha, come here. We have a little guest star. So guess what? This is Asha Gala. So Asha Gala is our lifestyle clinical director. We're live, okay? And we were talking about MBSR and how it can be used in many different areas, including we had a woman who's battling cancer now. And it's very overwhelming for her. And we were talking about how it would be so important to shift her emotional state because that will help her to fight her cancer, right? In many different ways, concrete ways. Your immune system will help shift so many ways. And then I told them that there's an MBSR course they can take.
Yes.
And you give it, they can read Mindfulness for Beginners. Maybe you can I'm not sure, maybe I gave them the right information, but maybe you can say, when is your next MBSR course?
It's coming up if you go to our website, I don't know the exact dates, but end of March, we will be having, I can send it to you, Chef AJ, the dates if need be. But yeah, it'll be end of March, and the dates are on our website. Those dates are
So
there.
if you had to say,
But people don't like to take the time to do that. You guys need to send me what's called clickable links, please.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll definitely send it. Yes.
okay, you'll send it. And if you had to say, just say because a lot of our audience, they don't know what MBSR is. Can you package it just in 3 sentences? Tell us what MBSR is in your words.
So in the most simplest format, it is a great way to bring awareness of what we are going through, because we're not, whether we're sad, happy, feeling the pain, anything it could be. As soon as we bring awareness that that's what we are, at least we're able to then recognize this and then take that we each of us carry a deeper wisdom, and you will be very surprised when you start focusing on the awareness, something within you will come up and you will be able to take action. And that action may be, okay, I'm in pain, or that action may be, oh, maybe I need more sleep, or anything, so those are the most simplest way that I can put it. More sleep, or any.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Okay, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Nice.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
about
good.
it. And I will look up the dates and I'll bring it up. Yeah.
AJ the way.
Yeah, or come back next time. Thank you. Well, I know you have to go because you're a real working doctor, but just a quick follow-up. The person that asked about triglycerides, I didn't see this. They said theirs came back at 200. They don't drink alcohol, but they do have PCOS. So is there a connection?
Yes, definitely. Because remember what I said, triglycerides, it's called the ugly, right? We're not quite sure that it's bad. We know it's not good, but it's somewhere in between. And people with PCOS, they have sort of like we know they're insulin resistant, they're like pre-diabetic. They take medicines. Conventional doctors give them metformin, which is a diabetic medicine. It's like a shady customer there or a relative of diabetes. It's a metabolic problem. They have like a metabolic syndrome kind of picture. And usually most PCOS patients are overweight. Remember what we said about that losing weight, but not just by any way, by eating whole plant foods, which has a special way of making you less insulin resistant. That would be powerful.
Nice. Dr. Weiss, thank you so much. You're just awesome.
Why don't you say it?
Chef AJ, I just wanted there's an orientation which is free. It's an experience learning on Feb 12. They can register for that orientation.
Yeah, that's free.
When is the orientation? And please, can you send me what's called a clickable link? Because that's how
I will be doing that, but it's Feb 12, 6:30 p.m. I'll send you the link.
Is it today or when is it?
No, February 12th.
Oh, perfect. And so they have time. We have time to promote this, not time before your next appearance, but this is great. Maybe this is something we can even send out in our newsletter because it's so important.
Yeah. Excellent.
Nice. Well, Dr. Weiss, you're a real doctor.
I'm trying.
Oh, and the challenge sounds great. Everything you do sounds great. The only thing is you're in New Jersey, but you can see sometimes you can see
but
people.
It doesn't. We have I am licensed in New York and New Jersey, and shortly we will be able to offer our services nationwide. So,
that's great. Well, Dr. Weiss, thank you so much.
Okay, Chef AJ. Thank you so much for
my pleasure. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time for Dr. Nandita Shaw talking about how to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.